The night Amanda Baptiste pulled the bloodied steel pin from the little girl's ear, 8-year-old Minji finally screamed. Not the silent, frustrated cries the child had known all her life, but a real, guttural scream that shattered every window in the east wing of the Kwon estate. The sound was so piercing, so impossibly loud, that the 12 armed guards stationed outside rushed in with weapons drawn, only to find the American maid standing beside their boss's daughter. The black had just done the impossible. She just healed the Mafia boss's deaf daughter, but unknown to her, that act of kindness would get her killed. 6 months earlier, Amanda had arrived at Incheon Airport with nothing but a fake nursing credential, a background in military field medicine she couldn't explain to anyone, and a debt to a man who promised her freedom if she could complete one job. Get into the Kwon household. Get close to the daughter. And when the time came, extract information that could bring down the most powerful crime family in Seoul. She hadn't expected Minji. The little girl sat in the corner of a room that cost more than most homes, surrounded by toys she never played with, watching her father's world move around her in complete silence. Kwon Tae-hyung ran his empire from the marble corridors of his mansion, a man so cold that people said his heart had frozen the day his wife died giving birth to his deaf daughter. He blamed the child for the loss. Everyone knew it. The way he looked through Minji rather than at her. The way he hired nannies and tutors and specialists, anyone to avoid being in the same room with his own daughter. Amanda was hired as a maid, but within 2 weeks, she was the only person Minji would tolerate nearby. The child had learned to read micro-expressions to survive in a house where no one signed, where her father held meetings in her playroom because he knew she couldn't hear the secrets being spilled. Minji watched Amanda differently. Those dark, intelligent eyes tracked every movement, and one afternoon, when Amanda was cleaning the library, the little girl approached her and did something she'd never done with anyone else. She smiled. It was a small thing, but in the Kwon household, small things had weight. Amanda started learning Korean Sign Language in secret, staying up after her shifts to study by phone light in her basement room. She practiced finger spelling while she dusted, rehearsed basic phrases while she folded laundry. And one morning, when she signed "Good morning" to Minji, the child's eyes went wide with something that looked dangerously close to hope. That was the morning Kwon Tae-hyung noticed Amanda for the first time. He stood in the doorway of his daughter's room, watching this foreign woman communicate with his child in a language he'd been too proud or too pained to learn himself. Something shifted in his expression, a crack in the ice that made him even more dangerous. Because men like Kwon Tae-hyung didn't know how to handle gratitude. They only understood ownership. The next day, Amanda was moved from the basement to the 3rd floor. Her uniform was replaced with designer clothes. Her title changed from maid to companion. And every night, she was summoned to have dinner with Tae-hyung in his private dining room, while Minji slept upstairs, unaware that her father was circling the only person who'd ever shown her genuine kindness. Tae-hyung was terrifying in his attention. He didn't touch Amanda, didn't even sit too close, but the way he looked at her felt like a hand around her throat. He asked questions about her past that she had to carefully navigate, lies built on top of lies. He told her things about his empire that sounded like confessions but felt like tests. And then one night, after his 3rd glass of whiskey, he said the thing that changed everything. "My daughter can't hear, but she sees everything. Did you know that on the day my wife died, Minji opened her eyes for the first time and looked directly at me? The doctors said newborns can't focus like that, but I know what I saw. Judgment. Even then, even as an infant, she judged me. Amanda's response was careful. Children don't judge. They just want to be loved. His laugh was bitter. Love is a liability in my world. Then maybe you're living in the wrong world. The silence that followed was so heavy it had texture. Taehyung set down his glass and stood, and for a moment, Amanda thought she'd miscalculated, thought this was where her cover ended and her life along with it. But instead, he walked to the window, his back to her, his reflection ghost-like in the glass. You're either very brave or very stupid, he said quietly. I haven't decided which. Can't I be both? This time when he laughed, it sounded almost human. But the warmth, if it could be called that, didn't last. 2 weeks later, Amanda discovered why she'd really been hired. She found the medical reports hidden in Taehyung's office while searching for intelligence to send back to her handler. Dozens of files on Min-ji, specialist after specialist, all saying the same thing: the child wasn't born deaf. Something was lodged deep in her ear canals, something that had calcified over the years, something that required a surgery so delicate that it had a 30% success rate and a high chance of brain damage. Taehyung had refused every procedure. He'd decided his daughter would stay deaf because the surgery was too risky, because he couldn't handle the possibility of losing her the way he lost his wife. So instead, he was losing her slowly, keeping her in a silent prison because his fear mattered more than her freedom. Amanda photographed the files and sent them to her handler. The response came back within an hour: this changes nothing. Get the account numbers. Get the shipping routes. The girl is not the mission. But the girl had become Amanda's mission the moment Min-ji had taken her hand and spelled out, friend, with shaky finger movements. The next dinner with Taehyung was different. Amanda didn't wait for him to speak first. I found the medical reports, she said. His hand stopped halfway to his wine glass. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. You went through my private office. You have men who do worse things than that every day. Those men work for me. You. He trailed off, and something dangerous flickered across his face. What exactly do you think you are to me, Amanda? It was the first time he'd used her name, and the intimacy of it felt like a weapon. She met his eyes. I think I'm the person who's going to tell you that you're a coward. The speed with which he moved was inhuman. One moment he was seated, the next he had her pressed against the wall, his hand around her throat, not squeezing but resting there, a promise and a threat. His face was inches from hers, and she could see every scar, every hard line, every year of violence etched into his features. Say that again, he whispered. You're a coward, she repeated, her voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. You're afraid of losing her, so you've made sure you never really have her at all. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Amanda could feel his pulse through his palm, could smell his cologne mixed with something darker, could see the war happening behind his eyes. And then, impossibly, his grip softened. His thumb brushed along her jaw, a gesture so tender it was obscene coming from a man like him. If you were anyone else, he said softly, you'd already be dead. If you were anyone else, she replied, you'd already be a father. He released her and stepped back like she'd burned him. The mask slammed back into place, but not before she saw the raw wound underneath. Get out, he said. She didn't. There's another option, Amanda continued. I have field medical training. I've done extractions in worse conditions than a mansion with resources. I can't promise it'll work, but I can promise I'll try. And if it goes wrong, you can do whatever you want to me. But at least give her a chance. You're insane. You're desperate. I can see it. Every time you look at her and she can't hear you, every time you want to speak to her and you don't know how, it's killing you. You're just too proud to admit it. Taehyung's composure was cracking, fissures spreading across his careful control. And what do you get out of this? What's your angle? This was the moment. The truth or another lie. Amanda had built her entire presence in this house on deception, but standing there, with this broken man and his silent daughter, she found herself saying something dangerously close to honest. Maybe I just want to do one good thing. Maybe I'm tired of everyone in this house treating that little girl like she's a ghost. Something shifted in his expression. You care about her. Someone has to. The words hung between them, accusation and confession all at once. Taehyung turned away, his shoulders tight, and when he spoke again, his voice was barely audible. If you hurt her, I'll make your death last years. If I hurt her, I'll hand you the knife myself. If you're loving this story so far, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Afro Soul Stories TV. Drop a comment below and tell us what you think Amanda should do next. Should she risk everything for Min-ji, or protect herself? We want to hear from you. 3 nights later, Amanda set up a makeshift surgical suite in Min-ji's bathroom, using tools she'd stolen from a veterinary clinic and sterilization equipment ordered under fake credentials. She'd studied the medical files until she'd memorized every detail, consulted with a retired surgeon via encrypted messages, and prepared for every possible complication. Min-ji sat on the closed toilet lid, watching Amanda with those unnervingly perceptive eyes. This might hurt, Amanda signed. But I promise I'm trying to help. Do you trust me? The little girl considered this with the seriousness of someone 3 times her age. Then she nodded once and signed back, You're the only one I trust. Amanda's hands shook as she prepared the local anesthetic. Taehyung stood in the doorway, having refused to leave despite Amanda's insistence. His face was carved from stone, but his hands were clenched so tight his knuckles were white. Behind him, 3 of his most trusted men waited, whether to assist or to kill Amanda if things went wrong, she wasn't sure. The procedure took 47 minutes that felt like hours. Amanda worked with a steadiness she didn't feel, using a modified surgical pin to carefully, meticulously, extract the calcified blockages that had stolen Min-ji's hearing. The child whimpered but didn't pull away, her small hand gripping Amanda's arm with surprising strength. When Amanda finally pulled the second piece free, a fragment of bone and tissue that had no business being in a human ear canal, Min-ji went rigid. Her mouth opened. And then came the scream. It was primal, shocking, the sound of someone hearing their own voice for the first time in 8 years. It shattered glass, set off car alarms in the driveway, and brought Kwon Taehyung to his knees. The guards rushed in, saw the blood, saw the tool in Amanda's hand, saw their boss's daughter screaming, and weapons came up. But Taehyung raised a hand, stopping them, his eyes locked on Min-ji. Say something, he whispered, his voice breaking. Please. Min-ji's scream faded to gasping breaths. She looked around wildly, overwhelmed by the sudden assault of sound. Car alarms. Footsteps. Shouting. Her father's voice. She turned to him, tears streaming down her face, and spoke her first words. "Too loud," she said in a small, hoarse voice. "Everything is too loud." Taehyung made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob, and then he was moving, pulling his daughter into his arms for the first time in Amanda's memory, maybe for the first time in years. Min-ji clung to him, crying into his shoulder, and he held her like she was the only thing keeping him anchored to the earth. Over the child's head, his eyes found Amanda's. The look he gave her was complex, layered with too many emotions to name. Gratitude. Suspicion. Possessiveness. Something that might have been love if men like him were capable of it. The guards lowered their weapons, but the danger in the room didn't dissipate. If anything, it intensified. Because Amanda had just become the most valuable and most dangerous person in the Kwon household. The next morning, she was summoned to Taehyung's office. She went expecting consequences, but what she found was worse. He was standing at his desk, her entire fabricated background spread out before him. Every lie, every false credential, every gap in her story. "Who do you work for?" he asked without preamble. Amanda's training told her to deny everything. Her survival instinct told her to run. But something else, something newer and more complicated, made her tell the truth. International Task Force. Organized Crime Division. "I was sent to gather intelligence on your operations." The admission should have been a death sentence. Instead, Taehyung nodded slowly, like she'd confirmed something he already knew. "How long have you known?" she asked. "Since the beginning. Your credentials were too perfect. Your timing too convenient. I have people checking everyone who enters this house." He moved around the desk, each step deliberate. "I let you stay because I wanted to know who sent you. And then you did something unexpected." "What?" "You saw my daughter as a person. Not as leverage, not as a weakness, but as a child who deserved better." He stopped in front of her. "Do you know what that makes you?" "Dead?" "Dangerous," he corrected. "To me. To my enemies. To yourself." His hand came up, cupping her face with a gentleness that contradicted everything he was. "I should kill you. Every tactical bone in my body says you're a threat that needs to be eliminated. But my daughter spoke her first words yesterday, and when I asked her what she wanted for breakfast this morning, she said your name." His thumb brushed her cheekbone. "So now I have a problem. Because the person who gave me back my daughter is the same person sent to destroy me." Amanda's heart was racing. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to make you a deal. You stop reporting to whoever sent you. You stay here, with Min-ji, with me. And in return, I let you live." "That's not a deal. That's a prison sentence." His smile was sharp. "Is it? Because from where I'm standing, you could have run a dozen times. You could have completed your mission and disappeared. But you performed unsanctioned surgery on a crime lord's daughter instead. So tell me, Amanda, what are you really running from?" The question cut too close to truths she didn't want to examine. Her handler. Her past. The things she'd done to survive before this assignment. The realization that somewhere between learning sign language and holding Minji's hand through the procedure, this had stopped being a job and started being something she didn't have a name for. "I want immunity," she said instead. "For me and for Minji. If your world ever comes crashing down, she gets out clean. She gets a life away from all of this." Taehyung's expression hardened. "You're bargaining for my daughter's freedom? Someone has to. And it's clearly not going to be you." For a moment, she thought she'd pushed too far. Violence flickered across his features, and she knew he could snap her neck before she could scream. But then something else took over, something that looked almost like respect. "You really don't fear me, do you?" "I'm terrified of you," she admitted. "But I'm more afraid of what happens to that little girl if no one protects her from your world." The kiss, when it came, was brutal and claiming, his hand fisting in her hair, pulling her close with a possessiveness that should have been terrifying. And it was terrifying, but it was also electric, months of tension exploding into something neither of them could control. Amanda kissed him back with equal intensity, her hands gripping his shirt, and for a moment they were just two people trying to find something real in a world built on lies. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Taehyung rested his forehead against hers. "You're going to ruin me," he whispered. "You're already ruined," she replied. "I'm just the first person honest enough to say it." His laugh was low and dark. "Immunity for Minji. Protection for you. But you belong to me now. No more handlers. No more missions. Just us." It was a cage wrapped in promises, a deal with a devil who looked at her like she was both salvation and destruction. Amanda knew she should refuse, should fight, should find a way out. But when Minji appeared in the doorway, signing, "Where's Amanda?" with a smile on her face, the choice had already been made. Wait. Before we get to the ending, tell us in the comments, do you think Taehyung really loves Amanda or is he just possessive? And should Amanda have accepted his deal? Let us know what you think. And if you haven't liked this video yet, do it now. 3 months later, Amanda's handler was found dead in his Seoul hotel room, 2 bullets in the chest, a message that the Kwon family didn't appreciate surveillance. The task force pulled out of Korea, the operation deemed too compromised to continue. Officially, Amanda Baptiste was considered lost, either dead or turned, her file sealed and forgotten. Unofficially, she sat in a garden with an 8-year-old girl who was learning to navigate a world of sound, teaching her the difference between birdsong and wind chimes, while Kwon Taehyung watched from the window with something that might have been contentment on his scarred face. The estate was still a fortress. The empire still ran on blood and fear. But in one corner of that dark world, there was a woman who'd pulled something terrifying from her past to give a child a future, and a man who was learning that love wasn't a liability. It was the most dangerous weapon of all. Minji's laughter rang out across the garden, clear and bright and impossible. Amanda looked up to find Taehyung standing beside them, and when he took her hand, the gesture was gentle despite the violence in his eyes. "Thank you," he said quietly, the words clearly difficult for him. "For what?" "For pulling me out of the dark. Both of us." Minji signed something rapidly, and Amanda translated with a smile. "She says she wants to learn piano now that she can hear music." Taehyung knelt beside his daughter, and the look he gave her was full of wonder. "Anything you want," he said, and Min-ji heard him, really heard him, and threw her arms around his neck. Over her shoulder, his eyes met Amanda's, and the promise there was clear. This strange, dangerous, impossible family they'd built from broken pieces and terrifying choices was his to protect now. And heaven help anyone who tried to take it from him. Because the Korean Mafia's daughter might have been born deaf, but she'd been reborn with a voice. And the black maid who'd pulled something terrifying from her past to make it happen had become something far more dangerous than any operative. She'd become untouchable. She'd become loved. And in Kwon Tae-hyung's world, that made her the most powerful person in the room. What an incredible journey. What did you think of Amanda and Tae-hyung's story? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Did this story give you all the dark romance and drama you were looking for? If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button and subscribe to Afro Soul Stories TV for more forbidden romance and thrilling tales. Hit the notification bell so you never miss our next story. And tell us, what kind of story do you want to see next? Mafia romance? Forbidden love? Royal drama? Let us know. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.